it's important to know this because why did Ram and Sita take incarnation at this particular time? Toward the end of the Treta Yuga, when the consciousness of spirit was so dimmed, the power of mantras was still able to maintain harmony and balance in the world, control the weather, etc. But the consciousness was declining. And so when they took birth, it was to help maintain the memory of the higher consciousness, the memory of the divine spirit. And so when Ram and Sita left for the forest, it was to help the sages who still had this consciousness develop their hermitages, so this memory could be conveyed through the declining ages and held in our collective memory. So that was the conditions or the situation in which they took birth during a declining Treta Yuga when the consciousness was changing. Sita, the mother, is tender yet firm, giving her sons room to explore and roam, yet ever watchful over their well-being. All her efforts are to awaken in them love and a sense of care and responsibility for all that lives. Sita, the wife, is attentive to the smallest details of her husband's life, supporting him and counseling him in all he does. Yet never for a moment does she surrender her dignity or place as his full partner in life. To do so would demean him. Sita, the friend, cares for every aspect of our life, aware of every detail, helping us to progress on our spiritual journey, watching over our spiritual progress. Sita, the Maharani, is the guardian of the people of this land and all life that exists within it. In the people, she seeks to awaken a higher purpose. In the animal and plant worlds, she protects and guides us upward, and she guides them upward in their awakening journey. One of Mata's teachings is to know how to turn every adverse situation into a beneficial one. This is the yoga of transformation. Nothing that comes to us is for the purpose of harm. Everything that comes to us, no matter how damaging or challenging it seems, can be used for a higher purpose and can yield a positive outcome. Who really is Mata? Who do you think she is? I didn't answer, so she answered for me. As you see her, that is who she is. To each one, she will be different. I don't understand, I murmured. In truth, she said, your question cannot be answered. If you want to know her many identities, her many appearances, I can tell you that, but they are not who she truly is. Is she then really the Maharani, the wife of Sri Ram? That is one of her identities. She's also the mother of Love and Kush, the daughter of Chanak Baba, the Raj Kumari of Mithila. She is the protector of the forest, the plant and animal life, the people and beyond, all that lives. You, Sita, is Mata, your guide on the path of awakening, and that she will always be, long after her role as the Maharani is past. Seek to know her eternal nature, not the temporary identity, one of so many. Namaste, and welcome to everybody. And thank you for inviting me to be here. Sita for me, there are many different aspects to the reality of Sita, and I want to touch upon all of them. There's the historical Sita, there's the living presence of Sita in our lives, the guide who helps us work through our life's challenges, and then there's the cosmic reality of Sita. So I want to touch upon all of them. But first, I want to talk about the historical Sita. Ram and Sita took birth during the declining Treta Yuga. And there's no disagreement about that. Everyone places them in that period of time. Now, the yugas are many ancient civilizations talked about the great year, a 24,000-year cycle in which our solar system rotates around another sun. Our sun rotates around another sun. And as we move through our galaxy, encounter periods of heightened electromagnetic energy, which heightens our spiritual perceptions. And then we pass through lower areas of this energy, which dims our spiritual perceptions. So when the perceptions are heightened, that's the Satya Yuga. And so it's like a 12,000-year movement as we increase our spiritual perceptions, and then they decline. And so Ram and Sita took birth during the declining Treta Yuga. And the timing for that is about 6,500 BCE until about 3,000 BCE. That was the period when spiritual perceptions boomed. And I want to read what was that. I think some of the misperceptions we have about Sita come because we have that narrative has come to us through a declining period, through the declining Dwapara Yuga, through the Kali Yuga, where we've imposed Kali Yuga mindsets onto the narrative, and those Kali Yuga mindsets are patriarchal. But Treta Yuga was pre-patriarchal. There was no concept of inequality during that time. What was the Treta Yuga consciousness like? And the yugas depict the consciousness, not so much the outer world, whether we had skyscrapers or airplanes or whatever. It was the consciousness of the people. So I'm going to read just a few sentences from this book, The Yugas, which is the best book I have found to describe the consciousness of the different yugas. And it's important to know because this was the world into which Sita took birth. So in Satya Yuga, humanity was able to directly perceive the divine spirit, what we call God, the divine spirit in everything. Everything was a manifestation of the divine spirit. The trees, the plants, the mountains, the rivers. Satya Yuga man saw the consciousness of the divine in that. Mental powers, but no longer have direct perception of God the Spirit. The initial Treta Yuga response to this loss of awareness of spirit and loss of capabilities was continue trying to manifest their needs miraculously through mantras. So in Satya Yuga, just the thought could manifest things. And therefore, even if you lived in a cave, it didn't matter because everything was available just through thought. In the Treta Yuga, people were given mantras to help manifest things because the power of thought was dimming. So it's important to know this because why did Ram and Sita take incarnation at this particular time? Toward the end of the Treta Yuga, when the consciousness of spirit was so dimmed, the power of mantras was still able to maintain harmony and balance in the world, control the weather, etc. But the consciousness was declining. And so when they took birth, it was to help maintain the memory of the higher consciousness, the memory of the divine spirit. And so when Ram and Sita left for the forest, it was to help the sages who still had this consciousness develop their hermitages. So this memory could be conveyed through the declining ages and held in our collective memory. So that was the conditions or the situation in which they took birth during a declining Treta Yuga when the consciousness was changing. So I want to talk a little bit, what was their work? What was Sita's work? In addition to this grander role of trying to retain this consciousness of a higher age in the collective, an important role was to help each individual that she came in contact with to work through their samskaras, to work through the challenges of life in a way that was not going to increase suffering for them. So I want to read, because I'm a writer and teachings come to me through stories, I want to read a story that displays this. And this is a story that begins in Sita's time, but ends during the time of Rukmini. Now, many say that Rukmini was Sita reborn, just as Krishna was the rebirth of Rama. And as you probe into the life of Rukmini, there are many parallels. But just as the story of Sita has been sort of misunderstood because it came to us through the declining ages, by the time you get to Rukmini, which is the end of Dwapara Yuga, patriarchy is well established and Rukmini is all but erased. But in this book that I wrote, Rukmini and the Turning of Time, it shows how her role, while Sita's role was in Treta Yuga, was to help embed in the collective mind certain aspects of the higher energy, of the higher consciousness. By the time we get to the end of the Dwapara Yuga, there are already so many social ills that Rukmini is dealing with. That the role has changed, just as the role of Krishna is different from the role of Ram. But there's a story in the Untold Story of Sita. I don't know how many of you have read that. I think it's the chapter, The Unseen Work of Sita, where a young woman and her mother, in preparation for the young woman's marriage, they're on the way to see the guru to receive his blessings when their chariot is waylaid and some men, two men, violate the young woman. And she's severely injured, and she's taken to the cottage of Sita, where Sita heals her. And then she submerges the memory so that she can continue on with her marriage. She submerges the memory of the violation so that she can go back to her normal life and have a happy life. But what happens to this young woman? That's not the end of the story. Sita does not lose sight of this woman, and she helps her work through that karma in her succeeding incarnations. And the rest of that story is told in the book Rukmini and the Turning of Time. And how it's at the beginning of the book where there's a woman who's called the seer, she's called the seer of Vidarbha. Vidarbha is where Rukmini was born. And people come to her and ask for stories of Rukmini. And somebody, a young dancer, has come and asked her, is this the first time you've met the Princess Rukmini? And she smiles and she becomes thoughtful. And she says, well, my meeting with her began many lifetimes ago, during the time of Sita Ma. I was a young girl preparing for my marriage ceremony when my mother took me to get the blessing of our Gurudev. His hermitage was the one where Sita Ma was living when she retreated to the forest to raise her children. Before we reached the hermitage, our chariot was attacked by men with a grudge against my father. My mother and I were injured, and we were carried to Sita Ma's cottage, where she healed us both. At that time, she suppressed the memory of what happened to me. Dadi, that's what she's called. Dadi paused briefly, and her eyes clouded over as if recalling that incident, and then she began again. I had been severely injured, violated multiple times, and would have died had Sita Ma not healed me. Had she not suppressed my memory of that horrible event, I would have taken my life in despair. But she did heal me, and I married and had children and a happy life. I visited Sita Ma again before she left her body. I asked her what had truly happened to me during that roadside accident. She did not tell me all the details, but she revealed that I had been gravely injured. Then she said, there are the laws of men and the laws of the universe. The laws of men do not always provide justice, but the universe never fails to do so. Trust in that. No person can escape their due, but you should not be the cause of their suffering, because then you will incur a debt and the cycle will continue. Her words sank deep into my mind. I lived the rest of my life well and then died. After a few more lives, I took birth as a man. There was a family that created much trouble for my family. One of the daughters of this family caused the death of my sister. This woman was spiteful and mean, and had been very envious of my sister, with whom I was close. Her death was very painful to me. One day, when I was riding my horse through a forest, I came across that woman. She had fallen from her horse and was slightly injured. Something inside of me said, "Now you can have your revenge. Kill her, and nobody will know who did it, or violate her so that she will fall into great despair." Stood there wavering, and was about to kill her when the words came into my mind: "The laws of men do not always provide justice, but the universe never fails to do so." And then I heard the words, "You should not be the cause of suffering, because then you will incur a debt." I stopped as if paralyzed when those words emerged from my mind. After wavering for a few more moments, I helped the woman back onto her horse, and then I rode away. My anger over my sister's death dissolved. This woman had much pain in her later years, but it wasn't because of anything I did. I was spared from committing a terrible deed, for which I would have had to pay a price. Sitama's words had sunk deep into my mind, and I had carried this teaching into my succeeding births. Well, the seer continues. Now I come to my current life. In my early years growing up in Vidarbha, I was friends with the daughter of a family who lived close to us. We lived in the community of gem carvers and jewelry makers. This girl had a harder life than I. She had a disability, but she was very kind to me and was always seeking to help me in any way she could. We grew up, we each got married, and remained friends, raising our children together, and she continued to assist me with anything I needed. If I wanted something from the market, she would insist on doing the errand for me. This is how my friend was, always looking to see what she could do for me. I had reached middle age when our young Rajkumari, Rukmini, came to see the jewelry makers in Vidarbha. It was then that I met her for the first time. My sight had already opened, and I was seeing many things about people. When our Rajkumari came to visit, my friend was there as well, and the young Rukmini watched as I chatted with this woman who had been my close companion since childhood. She watched as my friend insisted on serving us tea and snacks she had made, and kept asking if there was anything more she could do. I was even a bit embarrassed that she was serving me so ardently. At one point, our Rajkumari asked to see me alone outside, and as we sat together, she broke into joyous laughter. Then she whispered to me, "I am so glad to see this friendship now. All has finally been resolved." At her words, my memory awakened, and I saw that this woman, who was my dearest friend, had been one of the two men who long ago had violated me, and also was the one I had nearly killed in a subsequent life. I almost fainted from shock because I had refrained from killing that woman, and because that woman fully regretted the violence committed against me in an earlier birth. She was drawn to be born near me and seek my friendship now. Our Rajkumari then spoke the same words that Sitama had spoken to me about justice. I know she had transformed the soul and turned a mean-spirited being into a very kind and caring one. Whether we call her Sita or Rukmini, it doesn't matter. She is the Supreme Mother who watches over and silently guides her children. You see, we all play so many roles during our many lifetimes. Sometimes we are the hero, sometimes the villain. We mustn't hold anger or judgment because the person we hate may be our savior in a future life. So this story shows the work of Sita, of the mother, on us individually. She has the long vision of how we will work our way through many lifetimes until we finally awaken and realize who we are. And she has patience, and she helps us step by step and inserts into us words that can guide us. So words that she spoke to this young woman as when she was in as Sita, simple words that she spoke were embedded so deep in her consciousness that they helped her thousands of years later, when she could have committed a grave error for which she would have had to pay and which would have delayed her awakening. But finally, this innocent young village woman becomes a seer, the seer of Vidarbha, and is able to help many, many women because of the guidance she received from Sita so long ago. Such a small act, we may look at it as just, yes, she helped this woman heal from her wounds and have a happy life, but she was doing so much more on a deeper level. And that's what I've come to see about Sita. Everything she did had a much deeper meaning that extended way into the future. So, as we're talking about the historical Sita, what her work was, her unseen work, that doesn't get recorded in any of the histories, but gets recorded in people's memory. And that's the important thing. Everyone she had contact with, every person she had physical contact with or mental contact with, because she was working on the mental plane, as we'll see later on as well, where she didn't actually have the physical contact with someone. But everyone who she had this kind of contact with, she had long-term impact. So I want to read another incident, and this one is from the untold story of Sita. And it shows the different work that she was doing. Now, in Kreta Yuga, uh, uh, there was still the ability to converse with animals. And as if you, for those who've read the untold story of Sita, we see that Sita was able easily to converse with not just the animal, but the plant life in the rivers. The rivers spoke to her. Now, rivers are it's consciousness. Everything is divine consciousness, and so one can, if one engages with the world that way, one can receive messages and be in relationship with everything that is, because one sees it as just an extension of the divine consciousness. So this is a story told by Soma. Long after Sita passes, she continues to tell stories about Sita's life that not many people in the world witnessed, because Soma lived with her as her attendant in the forest. And she's telling this story now to a young woman who was sought to hear the stories of Sita. And she says, one day, not long after this, a very strange incident took place. As soon as I came into Sita's cottage that morning, I sensed a rare uneasiness in Mata that overshadowed the joy that normally exuded from her being. She seemed distressed by something, but I couldn't identify any cause. Love and Kush were fine. Our food was plentiful. Mata seemed perfectly happy. Nothing seemed healthy. Nothing seemed amiss. I watched her during the day. At one point, I asked if anything was wrong. She looked at me and nodded, but only replied, "It will reveal itself." The day passed. Periodically, she would look out the door and glance toward the forest, as if she were expecting someone. I thought perhaps she was missing Sri Ram and was silently hoping for his arrival. But it was another arrival she was awaiting. The next morning there was a tigress lying at our cottage gate. As soon as she saw Mata in the doorway, the great beast lifted her head and let out an agonizing cry, which frightened the children. Mata looked at her for a few minutes. Shaking her head, she slowly closed the door. All day and all night the tigress lay there, periodically emitting a cry. Finally, I could not stand it. Perhaps she is wounded, I suggested, knowing full well that if that were the case, Mata would certainly have attended to her. She's wounded, but in the heart, not the body, Mata replied. No, what the problem is, Mata nodded. I will go to her, but not just yet. She must realize her grave mistake. Second day and night passed, and still the tigress did not move. On the third morning, Mata went to her. I watched from the doorway as Mata knelt in front of her, and I saw the tigress place her head on Mata's lap. Mata stroked her head, began to speak to her. What you did was wrong, said Mata, lifting the tigress' head and looking directly into her eyes. Now take your cubs and go deep into the forest and stay away from human habitats. They will hunt you now, so go quickly. As Mata spoke these words, 3 cubs emerged from the edge of the forest, where they had been hiding behind some trees. They approached Mata, and she blessed them that they would be safe. When they were gone, I asked Mata to explain. She sighed and said, a hunter killed the eldest of her cubs, and in a fit of anger, she went into a village and killed a little boy. Now the villagers are hunting for her. Thus begins the war between man and nature. In Treta Yuga, there was no war between man and nature. There was harmony. But in the declining time, this tension, this lack of harmony begins to manifest itself. And one of the roles of Sita was to try to delay this, try to instill in our consciousness very deep this love for the natural world so that we would not create harm. After a moment, she added, I must go and find that family. Soma, let us cook. It's another thing, Sita healed people through food. She went to the kitchen area and began to prepare a large pot of food. All the while, she kept repeating the words, must have Hanuman with me. I must have Hanuman and the chariot. She's mentally calling for Hanuman. Throughout the morning, we prepared food. By early afternoon, I saw the chariot drive up, and out stepped Hanuman. He greeted us as if nothing was out of the ordinary. But Mata exclaimed, thank goodness you have come. Now let me dress and we will go. I heard your call, Mata, but where are we going? He asked. We will see. She rushed into the cottage, and I saw her dig out her royal clothes from a wooden chest in her room. Helping her dress, I asked what this was about. It will be more meaningful to them if they see their Rani, she replied. More meaningful to whom? I was perplexed, wondering if we were going to Ayodhya. She didn't answer, but rather directed me to load the food into the chariot. She told me to stay with the children, and she and Hanuman left. The rest of the story I heard from Hanuman after their return. They had ridden from one village to the next until Mata finally said, this is the one. When they got down from the chariot, they found a village in mourning. She asked Hanuman to bring the food, and they went from hut to hut until she found the weeping mother. Mata whispered to Hanuman, a hunter had killed the cub of a tigress, and in her anger, the tigress killed the woman's child. Now the village men are hunting the tigress. I must stop them. Mata stood at the door in the doorway of the hut, waiting to be invited in. Mata described to me the pain on Mata's face as she saw the agony of the mother, who was calling out to her small son, who had been killed. When her husband saw that it was the Maharani who was standing at the doorway, he quickly touched Mata's feet and begged her forgiveness. We have just lost our young son, he said. Please forgive us for not being able to receive you properly, Maharani. I heard about the incident and brought you some food, she replied. Please let me tend to your wife. He invited her and Hanuman to enter. Hanuman brought the food to Mata, who laid it out before the weeping mother. When she realized it was the Maharani who stood before her, she wiped her tears and exclaimed, Forgive me for not receiving you as I should. Mata looked at her with compassion and quietly spoke to her. Nothing I can say can ease your pain. I am also a mother, and so I know the deep wound in your heart. But please let me offer you this food that I have cooked with my own hands. It will bring you some relief. So here's the mother of the universe serving a mother in distress. Mata had put special herbs into the food to calm the emotions. She laid out the food and the woman ate. As Mata watched, she saw the woman was weary from lack of sleep. After finishing her meal, she lay down beside Mata and fell asleep. I don't know what you have done, but I'm ever grateful, said her husband. She has not eaten or slept at all since he was killed 4 days ago. He was the youngest of our 3 children and the only son. He was most dear to her. Mata shook her head in sorrow when she heard those words. Then he asked, Where will you spend the night tomorrow night? Mata hadn't thought of that. They were far from the hermitage and night had fallen. She looked at Hanuman to see whether they could manage to get home, but he shook his head. It is better we wait until daybreak, he whispered, in answer to the question she did not voice. With your permission, I will make arrangements for you to stay with the village chief, the man hurried to say. We have only come to comfort you, replied Mata in a gentle voice. No need to worry about our accommodations. But I hesitate to leave your wife in her condition, so we will spend the night so that I can speak with her when she awakens. Mata glanced at the door and saw that the villagers were peering in. They had all come to see the Maharani. She walked out to the door, and the villagers assembled to allow her to pass. One by one, they bowed and touched her feet. How gentle and respectful they are, whispered Mata to Hanuman. We will find that tigress and kill her, shouted a man from behind, thinking perhaps this would please the Maharani. Mata stopped and turned to see who had spoken. She saw standing amid the crowd a man who looked like one of the village elders. She shook her head and said, If you do, more violence will follow. You must end this killing now. The crowd fell silent. But Maharani, if we do not kill that vicious animal, she will kill again. I met the tigress, Mata said. A hunter had killed her cub, and in anger she retaliated. But in that process, she killed an innocent boy. I have sent her deep into the forest. She will not kill again. Let her be. You both have suffered. So Mata had also stilled in the tigress's mind the thought of not killing a human. The man did not respond, and Mata and Hanuman proceeded to find a place to spend the night. At daybreak, Mata roused herself from her semi-sleep and stepped outside, where she saw the village elders, led by the man who had spoken out the night before. They were ready to go in search of the tigress. Mata approached them and once more pleaded with them to abandon the hunt. But the men insisted. Please forgive us, Maharani, but you know what we have suffered. We cannot risk losing another child in this village. As Mata stood there wondering what more she could say, she saw the village women emerge from their huts and encircle the men. What is this? Asked one of the elders. Our Maharani has come all this way to comfort us. We will not allow you to disregard her pleas. We will not let you leave here. Neither side would move, neither the men nor the women. Suddenly Mata saw the mother of the deceased boy emerge from the hut. She walked as if in a dream until she reached Mata and fell at her feet. Mata gently lifted her and asked in a whisper, You have seen him, have you not? Your son came to you last night in a dream, did he not? She nodded. What did he say? Tell all the villages what your beautiful son said to you. He asked me not to cry anymore, and he asked me not to kill the tigress. Said she too has lost a child. Tears filled her eyes as she spoke. No one said a word. Finally, she turned to the elders and pleaded, "Please do not disobey the Maharani. It is for the sake of my son that I ask this." The group slowly disbanded, returning to their own hut. But as they left, Mata said to the hunters, "To keep peace in the forest, take no more than is needed for your sustenance. It is not we who are transgressing, Maharani," said the village chief to her. "It is the people from the city, from Ayodhya, who are coming into the forest now, hunting not for food, but for pleasure, and we are reaping the results. We do not know how to stop them." A look of surprise and concern crossed Mata's face. This was a new development, one that she had not heard before. "I will see what can be done," she said. Before taking her leave, Mata embraced the mother and said to her, "In a few years you will have another son. He cannot take the place of the one you have lost, because each child is an irreplaceable treasure, but he will bring joy back into your life. The son you have lost must now continue his journey to a new birth. Your tears will hold him back, but your love can help him proceed. Send him love unceasingly. That is the role of the mother, to help the child along his or her journey." The woman nodded and profusely thanked Mata. Then Mata and Hanuman took their leave. Before getting into the chariot, Hanuman asked Mata, "You found that boy in the celestial world, didn't you? He was lost, unable to return to life, and unable to move forward, held back by his mother's tears. I asked him to go to her and ease her pain, so that then he would be free to proceed. I also asked him if he would protect the tigers who had killed him. He agreed. He is a wise soul who will have a good birth." This answers the question of who is Sita in her work with us individually. This woman who lost her child is one of many women who then and today lose children. But Sita can help us, help that mother, help the child who was lost by turning her grief into love, by realizing that for whatever karmic reason, it was that child's maybe unconscious choice to leave, and that she can help that choice, help that child and that child's journey onward by sending unconditional love and continuing to feel the connection with that child. All of these incidents that took place during Sita's life had meaning for us now, because as she helped individuals when she was in her earthly birth, she continues to help us now from her non-visible in her non-visible presence. And I have felt that many times in my life, as Sita, for me, is a living presence, an internal voice. So I want to read one more story, and this is really the cosmic reality of Sita. And this is from a book that I'm working on now called The Yoga of Sita Mata. The Yoga of Sita Mata. And I'm in the early stages of working on this book. And it's a story again of a village woman, but a highly advanced soul, who first encounters the presence of Sita as an internal voice as she's meeting certain life challenges. The first one is when she's newly married and her husband gets very sick, and none of the medicines, the plants heal him. She hears Sita's voice telling her where to find a certain plant that will heal him. And she goes and Sita tells her internally as a voice. She hasn't met Sita, but she hears this voice. She doesn't know who it is. She thinks it's some Devi. But she follows the instructions, and her husband is healed. And then she has many things like that where she hears this internal voice. Now she's born during the time of Sita. Sita's living in the forest at that time, not far away, but she has no idea where this voice is coming from. And then one day she has a vision in her meditation. Sita guides her in meditation. Sita tells her how to meditate, gives her mantras, all from this inner voice that comes from the internal world. And then one day she has a vision of her during meditation, and then some years later. So years pass when she has the experiences. And then some years later, she actually is in the forest collecting herbs when she sees Sita in the forest with her children. And she recognizes that this is the woman she saw in vision. She doesn't know that she's the Maharani. She thinks she's some great rishi. And she says, "Oh my goodness, she's not a Devi. She's a rishi. She's a woman who's on earth. I can learn from her." And she has the experience of Sita bilocating, where Sita's walking with her children in the forest, but she also is standing before her while she's in meditation, giving her meditation instructions, and she sees both. Um, and so now she uh, follows Sita. She returns to her cottage and she sees her living in the cottage and she says, "Oh my goodness, here's a great rishi living not far from me, from whom I can learn." Some years later, and she meets Sita's attendant, Soma. And Soma says, "She'll continue to guide you internally. No need to come here. She can continue to guide you internally." Some years later, this woman called, her name is Devani, is in the forest and she meets two young men, middle-aged men, and they seem lost, and she asks if she can help them, and they say, "Yeah, we're looking for the cottage of the. We have a petition for the Maharaja, but we want to give it to the Maharani because that's the best way to reach the Maharaja." And it's about the forests, and we know she's cares greatly about the forests, so we need to find the Maharani. And this woman says, "Well, I don't know anything about the Maharani. I don't know why you're looking here for the Maharani. I can't help you." And so the men leave. And then she says, calls them back and says, "But there's a great rishi living at the edge of the forest. And if anybody can help you find the Maharani, it's her. And here's how you get to her cottage." So she directs them to the cottage. And then a year later, she's in the town where these men live, and she encounters one of them. And she said, "Did you ever find the Maharani?" And he says, "Thank you. Yes, we did." And we gave her the petition. She sat with us, and she solved our problem. And thank you very much she was in the cottage that you directed us to. But we never found the rishi, but we found the Maharani. And so, and then they say, her attendant, this woman named Soma, tried to prevent us from coming and from engaging with her, but she came to the doorway and called us to come in. So this woman now is confused. Sounds to me like the woman you met is the rishi, not the Maharani. She goes back home and she's confused and says, "Could the rishi have disguised herself as the Maharani in order to satisfy these men? She's got great powers, but who is she?" So she's continues to debate about this. And then she goes into the forest one day, about a year later, and she's meditating, and this question doesn't leave her mind. And then she opens her eyes for meditation, and she says, she sees Soma meditating before her. And she greets Soma, and she says, is Mata with you?" She calls the woman she thinks of as the rishi, she calls her Mata. She shook her head and she said, "She sent me to you. She's prepared food for your family." She indicated a basket on the ground beside her. Mata had never sent food before, and I wondered why now. In response, Soma replied, "One of the children will soon fall ill. Feed this to her and the others. It will protect them." After a pause, she added, "Mata also instructed me to answer your questions." "What questions might you have, my dear?" By the slight smile on her face, I was made aware that she knew what questions I had. I was silent for a few moments. and then asked in a slightly trembling tone, "Who really is Mata? Who do you think she is?" I didn't answer, so she answered for me. "As you see her, that is who she is. To each one, she will be different." "I don't understand," I murmured. "In truth," she said, "your question cannot be answered. If you want to know her many identities, her many appearances, I can tell you that, but they are not who she truly is. Is she then really the Maharani, the wife of Sri Ram? That is one of her identities. She's also the mother of Love and Kush, the daughter of Chanak Baba, the Kumari of Matila. She is the protector of the forest, the plant and animal life, the people and beyond, all that lives. What more do you want to know?" I didn't respond, and she continued, "When you look at the night sky and see the multitude of stars numbering beyond any count, you are viewing just the barest part of what lies out there. And all of that vastness is just the hem of her skirt. In truth, this whole visible universe is her garment. The universes beyond this visible one, grander and more magnificent, are the jewels that encircle her. She is the essence of all, coming into the world of appearances on rare occasion for a specific purpose. While she is here, she is also there, as are you and I. Don't think this form of yours is who you truly are. It is just one of your appearances. While you are here, I also see you there in the celestial world. That is the truer you. You exist in many places simultaneously, my dear, just as Mata does. Only you have closed off your awareness, as most people do. If Mata is the Maharani, then why is she living a simple life in a cottage near the forest? Soma laughed. Whoever said Mata's life is simple? Her life is more complex than anyone can comprehend, as she is in so many places at once, guiding beings on more than just this planet, without ever moving. That's important. We think of her as our own, as belonging just to Earth or just to India. But she's guiding life on more than just this planet, throughout the universe, in fact. That is not so difficult since she is a manifestation of the universal mind, at one with everything, which is hard for most people to fathom. It is not necessary to know who Mata is, but you will know in time. It is enough to read her, to receive her love, and to give that love to everyone and everything. That is all she asks, nothing more. And then she goes on to say about describing who Sita and Ram are. She says, "You might say they are like two suns circling each other, an inseparable pair, shining together in equal measure. As part of their play, at times she becomes like the moon, reflecting his light, and at other times he is the moon, reflecting her light. To watch them play and dance together through the cosmic ethers is the ultimate joy. They embrace in the fullness of unity and that allow the appearance of separation to come over them for the perpetuation of the manifest world." And then Soma asks, "Which Sita do you want to know?" "All," I murmured. Sita the mother is tender yet firm, giving her sons room to explore and roam, yet ever watchful over their well-being. All her efforts are to awaken in them love and a sense of care and responsibility for all that lives. Sita the wife is attentive to the smallest details of her husband's life, supporting him and counseling him in all he does. Yet never for a moment does she surrender her dignity or place as his full partner in life. To do so would demean him. Sita, the friend, cares for every aspect of our life, aware of every detail, helping us to progress on our spiritual journey, watching over our spiritual progress. Sita, the Maharani, is the guardian of the people of this land and all life that exists within it. In the people, she seeks to awaken a higher purpose. In the animal and plant worlds, she protects and guides us upward, and she guides them upward in their awakening journey. Her cosmic form I cannot describe. There are no words for it. But that form of hers can be experienced when one has fully awakened to her being within oneself. That form of hers can be experienced when one has fully awakened to that being within oneself. Now, this young woman who has awakened to the Sita within herself, because she's been for years receiving guidance within. Soma goes back to describe Ram and Sita's relationship. She said, you must see them as two people, as two solar bodies, as two cosmic beings. It doesn't matter. The essence of their being is love, because love is the foundation of all that is. It is love that brought this universe into existence. It is love that maintains it and will withdraw all that is into the cosmic self when the play is done. It was love that drove Ram and Sita into the forest for so many years, enduring physical hardships for the sake of helping the forest communities evolve. It was love that sent them into Lanka to free their devotee imprisoned in delusion, because that's who Ravan was, a fallen devotee. And that again shows the extent to which they will go to help a devotee who has fallen into illusion. It was love that sent them into Lanka to free their devotee imprisoned in delusion and to free his followers who had been captivated by his illusionary powers. And it was love that sent Sita into the forest for what you call a simple life. Love for Rishi Brigu, who long ago unknowingly cursed Narayan to know the pain of separation from his wife. Soma stopped speaking and closed her eyes. She remained that way for some time. When she opened her eyes, I asked quietly, so that is the cause of the separation? Soma nodded. It is not publicly known because that would cast a cloud over that esteemed great soul, and neither Ram nor Sita would allow this. Narayan took on that curse to free Rishi Brigu of his anger, but he can't be fully free until the curse has been fulfilled. I once heard Sita say that the Rishi performed a great service because having to fulfill the curse made her realize that the era of cursing must end. Ram would now establish a system of justice, independent of the sages, that is needed for society to advance, because the sages often respond from their emotions. This can weaken their clarity of sight. One of Mata's teachings is to know how to turn every adverse situation into a beneficial one. This is the yoga of transformation. Nothing that comes to us is for the purpose of harm. Everything that comes to us, no matter how damaging or challenging it seems, can be used for a higher purpose and can yield a positive outcome. Remember this, Devani. It is an essential teaching. The yoga of transformation. And when we look at the two stories I told previously of the young woman who was violated, but the teaching Sita gave her was used to actually enable her awakening process. And the mother who lost her child was also able to grow from that experience. And Sita says through Soma, because Soma is her voice, nothing that comes to us is for the purpose of harm. Everything that comes to us, no matter how challenging or damaging it seems, can be used for a higher purpose and can yield a positive outcome. This is an essential teaching. Then she says, to you, Sita is Mata, your guide on the path of awakening, and that she will always be, long after her role as the Maharani is past. Seek to know her eternal nature, not the temporary identity, one of so many. So, in terms of who Sita is, she is the living presence within each one of us. We can attune ourselves to that presence and receive her guidance. So we can know her in many ways. We can know her as the historical Sita and correct the misperceptions that the narrative has taken on through the declining ages. And now that we are in a descending age, having entered the ascending Dwapara Yuga, we can correct those narratives, that the misperceptions, and that is important because to know the teachings that Sita left, and this is what I hope to do in the book, The Yoga of Sita, the teachings that she left were left in the deep memory of each one of us who were alive at that time, and many of us were. Soma says later on in this book that I'm writing that when an avatar, when a high being Narayani are going to take birth, when this thought ripples through the celestial worlds, those who are nearly at the end of their journey, who have slight samskaras to resolve, hurry to take birth so that they can be on earth at that time with them, both to help their work, because it's a collective work. We're talking about the collective energy field, the vibrational level, and the more high souls are on earth at any one time, the higher the vibrational field. Satya Yuga, there are many high souls who take birth at that time. The Yos Yuga, many souls who are not as evolved are on earth at that time. But when an avatar is taking birth, that those who have just a little bit of karma to resolve take birth so that they can receive moksha. And as Soma says to her later on, this woman, Sita had already told her that she will achieve moksha in this life because she was one of those souls who took birth, who had just a little bit of karma to resolve. Moksha is not the end goal. Moksha means freedom from rebirth, freedom from the compulsions of karma. But once you're free from taking rebirth, that's not the end. You live in a celestial world, but you're not haven't achieved union with the cosmic self. There are subtler and subtler layers that we have to work through. But moksha is our immediate goal. The immediate goal being, if we take birth, it's to do it as a bodhisattva for the benefit of others, not through the compulsions of our karma, where we have to work through the karma, the imprints that we have remaining from earlier births. So I think I'll pause here. We don't have a lot of time left, and I'll see if there's any questions. I hope you didn't mind me doing all these readings, but when I do the readings, to me, it's a way of invoking the presence of Sita. And every time I read one of these stories, I feel her come into me and I feel her presence very much with me. I hope you have felt some of that presence of Sita Ma. So I'll pause now to see if there's a question or so that you want to ask me.
Meanwhile, I will just take some of the questions that are there in the chat box. Uh, Ma'am, somebody has asked that as Swami Vivekananda said that in the modern times there is so much cry about freedom, but he said that true freedom is forbearance. And when we see the life story of Mata Sita, she was the embodiment of wisdom, courage, strength, and deep forbearance. So how can she play the best role model for modern women, inspiring them to navigate through life's challenges with resilience and grace?
No, true freedom is inner freedom. And I think that's one of the misperceptions of our society right now. We talk about out of freedom. Freedom is not the freedom to fulfill your desires and to do whatever you please. That's a misunderstanding of freedom. Freedom is inner freedom, freedom from reaction to external circumstances. So as long as you are reacting to what's taking place outside, you're not free. You're still in a reactive mode. Sita was beyond any external circumstances. If you read the untold story of Sita, she willingly went into Lanka to do the inner work with Ravan. She remembered him as the high soul that had fallen into delusion. And so she encountered numerous difficulties. In the forest with Ram, they encountered numerous difficulties. She encountered difficulties in Lanka. And then when she retreated to the forest, there were also hardships, but they didn't touch her because she was free. And this is the yoga of transformation, transforming anything that comes to you in life can be used for your own spiritual growth. So instead of seeing it as a hardship or a punishment, it's what is the teaching in this? Whatever comes to you, and it doesn't mean there's not grief. You lose a child, any loss, you lose a life partner. Of course, there's the human side of grief. But how can I grow from this? Do I need to become more independent? Do I need to become stronger? Do I need to become, to maintain my contact with the soul? I need to be thinking of the soul, sending out love. How can you grow through the experience? And I think everything that comes to us, and I think that's what Swami Vivekananda meant by forbearance, using every external experience as an experience for growth, not to see yourself as the victim or it's to bemoan your suffering, but to use it as an experience for spiritual growth.
He wants to ask that in the contemporary times, our relationship with nature and the living world is fraught with complexity and contention, with the environment and animals suffering gravely due to human actions. So, how might we glean insights from the life of Mata Sita, whose embodiment of empathy and love shines brightly to foster a more harmonious coexistence with nature and ultimately alleviate its distress?
I think on an individual level, I mean, there are many levels that one can work, one can be, but the shift in consciousness that we're all working toward now is to change from seeing nature as a commodity, something that we can buy and sell. You can sell mineral rights, you can use the rivers as you please, you can just, pour toxins in, regardless of the fact that this is a home to life. To shift that consciousness and to see everything as living consciousness, and to know that we have to respect and beyond respect, love and care for. And whether we do it at a grand level, depending on what our role in life is, whether we work in environmental organizations or in government or whatever, or individually, just in how we behave, how mindful we are we taking time to listen to the birds, to engage with the birds? Are we taking time to be with the tree, to walk in the forest, to take note of everything, to be in relationship? So I think it's a matter of each one of us personally coming into a relationship again with all of that surrounds us, and sort of, whenever way we can, trying to reverse and change the consciousness of those who just are unconsciously, ignorantly causing harm.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we have a last question. Uh, what advice would you offer to young seekers eager to explore spirituality and delve into its depths, drawing from your own life experiences to illuminate the path of young boys and girls?
Would say the most important thing for young people is to learn to meditate. I started meditating when I was 20. It's been a lifelong a practice of mine, and I'm so grateful that I gained this practice early in life because it's helped me through many There's nobody on earth who's not going to face challenges. You don't grow without challenges, and you have the ability to withdraw and to center yourself and to tap into the higher wisdom. teaching young people this, even if it's for 15 minutes a day. But the most important thing is persistence. It doesn't matter how long, it could be 10 minutes, but if you do it regularly, not, oh, when I feel like it, then you develop, there's certain things that when you get up in the morning, you always brush your teeth. It's not like, do I feel like it or not? You always have your breakfast. So there's certain things that you just naturally do every day, and learning, incorporating meditation into your daily life, because then you'll have the tools to deal with, and teaching people techniques to be able to internalize and reflect on themselves. What is the best course for me to follow? To ask your higher self, to come in contact with that higher wisdom that everyone has. We all have that. Nobody is without it, but we don't know how to use it. We don't know how to tap into it. Meditation helps us learn that.